Man. In this video, I'm gonna be turning this boring shed into an epic home gym.
Thanks to PRx Performance, I'm giving away $1,000 to one of you watching this video. Simply like this video, subscribe to both my YouTube channel and PRx Performance's YouTube channel, and comment, "I want a home gym" below. First, let me take you back to when I built this shed. This is the location that I scoped out to build this new shed, and I was going to build it right next to my home theater shed. If you haven't watched that video, I'll certainly link that in the description below. But first I jumped into SketchUp to start designing this shed because this was going to be the very first shed that I've ever built, and I was planning to convert it into a home gym, so I went ahead and did that design at the same time to make my life a little bit easier down the road. Designed everything with PRx Performance's equipment in mind. First step was to get the grade and area level. I did employ some of my friends to come and help me out with this because I'm not a concrete expert, so this was one area where I decided to hire some pros, like my friend Jesus here, who was great at grading because the last thing I wanted was my shed sliding down this little hill here. So we got the concrete pumping in. I decided to go with a solid concrete foundation for this shed. There's lots of different ways to do foundations for a shed, but in this case, considering it was going to be a home gym, I was going to have a lot of heavy weights in there. Concrete was the best option to go with here. About that time, I got a special delivery from PRx Performance. They were nice enough to sponsor this video and sent me some of the coolest equipment ever for my home gym build. Speaking of build, I had a lot to build here. I did a full cut sheet list here to figure out every piece of lumber I was going to need to build. Remember, I've never built a shed before, but I figured if I have a channel named ManShed, I should probably know how to build a shed. So I got to work just cutting up all the lumber, some pressure treated lumber, some regular lumber. I did a lot of cutting for this shed build. And thanks to Tough Shed, I reverse engineered how that shed was built for the home theater so that I built this thing as strong as a Tough Shed. Had to get the whole family involved, and the dogs were super excited, but my wife was worried.
Hello.
Hello.
Be careful.
With the safety meeting out of the way, I was ready to start putting this shed together. I laid out all these 2x4s. Getting that wall lifted up for the first time was super inspirational because I really felt like I was going to do this thing. But this was not easy doing it by myself. But I just did one step at a time and kept going at it and brought in more lumber. But this wall almost took me out. Now, by no means do I recommend building a shed by yourself, but I'm just showing you that it is possible. I do employ the help of some of my friends through this build process because it's just more fun doing projects with your friends. Like my friend John here, who helped to come put up the rafters on the roof because, those were heavy. Then I had to wrap the entire shed with some house wrap because this needed to be heated and cooled and weather sealed. I did some traditional shed siding on the outside because after all, it is a shed. Cut out the holes for the windows and got to painting this to match our home theater shed sitting right next to it. Roofing a shed is pretty straightforward and the steps are pretty methodical, but they were time consuming just for this small 16 by 12 shed. This is the first time I've done anything like this. The shingles, roofing like this, first time, or installing windows for that matter. And I think you're supposed to have 2 people install an 8x4 window. I threw on the door for the shed, which it's pretty straightforward. It's fully cased in, but the shed was done just like that. I had a full-blown shed that looked like a shed, smelled like a shed, was a shed, but it was not going to stay just a shed. About that time, my Aunt Lynn and Uncle Warren came rolling through Tucson with their RV, so he volunteered to help, and I put him to work, and man, was he good at helping me do all the electrical in this shed build. I really enjoyed and appreciated that time that I had with my Uncle Warren. Now, by no means is this an instructional video on how to do electrical. In fact, I always recommend that you get a professional to do and install electrical, and I really appreciated my Uncle Warren's insights and experience of electrical tips and tricks that he's learned over the years. At that time, I did did not know that that was the last time I was going to get to spend with my Uncle Warren. I pulled the main power from a sub panel nearby and got to work installing the installation. If you guys remember, insulation is my absolute least favorite part of converting a shed into any type of epic space, but I just did it one step at a time and even employed my wife, Lauren, to come out and help me finish up the ceiling because it was getting lonely, and there's nothing cozier than having your wife help you out with an insulation project, and she did an awesome job. But about that time, I decided to start cutting the shed apart because I made a design change. Rather than just having the TV mounted flat on the wall here, I decided that I was going to recess it into the wall with some additional design elements using some acoustic slats, which you'll see later on in the video. But first, I had to get to tearing out and cutting apart my shed. And if I haven't said this before, the Sawzall is probably one of the best tools to have in your tool belt. There we go. Nice blank canvas to work with here. I went and installed some additional 2x4s back into that space to reinforce it, and I made sure to line these back support pieces in line with the original studs to maintain the integrity and structure of the wall. But this is going to give me a nice little area to insert the TV. I then reinserted some foam just to make sure that it's fully insulated still, because I kind of did remove all the insulation from that space. I also created a path and a channel here for all the cables to run down. I used the radiant barrier foil to insulate that space. Next step was to install the drywall, so I had to carry all these sheets of drywall from the garage into the shed itself and got to work cutting out the holes for the lights in the ceiling, and proceeded to do this without any type of assistance or lift, and you can see me struggling. Yes, I was struggling. Very much so. Trying to hold this up with my head. I got one sheet in, but decided to get smart and borrowed this drywall lift from my friend Greg. The drywall was taking a very long time, so let's speed it up a little bit. And now it was time to actually get pretty serious because I had to mud all of this drywall and something else I had not really done before. So I covered all of the screws and then did the corner beading on the drywall. I am definitely not a professional at this, and please feel free to let me know down below how sloppy of a job I'm doing here, because I needed to take this to another level. In fact, originally I wanted to do a level 5 smooth finish on this drywall because I just wanted a really clean aesthetic. I was going to have some harsh lighting in here. So I thought that doing the level 5 smooth finish would be the way to go. And it was way harder than I thought it was going to be. I have a ton of respect for drywall finishers because it is methodical and a lot of steps, and it really should be done the right way. Now, like I said, I was going to go for a level 5, but honestly, a level 5, I think it requires like 3 coats on top of screws and above tape. And I unfortunately ran out of patience to doing that in a shed. So I don't know if this is level 3 or level 4, but I still did the best job I could getting it prepped and ready to do all of the mud on the walls. But first thing that I needed to do is bring in some of this OSB here, because 2 of the walls, I don't know if you guys noticed, but 2 of the walls did not have any drywall on them. 2 of the walls in this shed gym are going to have mirrors and other acoustic finishes on them. So I wanted something really solid and easy to screw to, especially with the mirrors and the acoustic slats. So I did the OSB on 2 of the walls, and now it was time to do the smooth finish on all of the drywalled walls. So first I used a paintbrush roller to roll everything on, and then I used this blade to smooth it down the best I could. And first time doing this, so it definitely was a trial and error on a lot of it, but I got it done. And overall, it looked pretty smooth on the walls. Then I moved on to the ceiling. Much harder to do the ceilings and get them perfectly smooth. So I was trying to really just minimize the amount of sanding that I was going to have to do. And there are a lot of flaws, but I was overall pretty pleased with how it finished out. And fortunately, it was minimal sanding, and this DeWalt drywall sander made short work of all of the wall surface sanding. I did go through with a light to find any imperfections or low or high spots, and further sanded those down just by hand to make sure it was perfectly smooth. Like I said, trying to go for level 5, but I don't know what level I ended up with, but I was happy and proud of my work. Then it was time to get all that dust that I generated clean out of there, and Shopsmith sent me a nice little present here. Shopsmith sent me their Mark 7 tool that is actually an amazing tool, and I started using it here on the gym shed, but I'm going to be doing a lot of videos with that Shopsmith, so be sure to smash the subscribe button to see everything I'm going to create with that Shopsmith Mark 7. Next, it was time to prep for paint, so I taped up all of the windows, got them all plastic covered, and proceeded with a base layer of primer on all of the walls and surfaces.
That was easily accomplished with the paint sprayer. It is nice to be 6'7" because I can reach the ceiling without a problem with the wand extension. Gave everything a nice light sanding to break down any imperfections, and then proceeded with this software gray color on 2 of the walls and trying to protect it from the ceiling there. I did have to go back and do some touch-up painting, but it turned out pretty good overall. I love using a sprayer for spraying drywall. It just makes the job go so smooth and easy. Toso was nice enough to send me their mini split unit for this space, and I love using mini splits because it's just a nice controlled way to heat and cool a converted shed like this. Just screwed that mounting bracket onto the wall. We were going to place the inside air handler. You only have to drill 1 hole through your wall, which is really nice, but you do have to wrap up all of the cords, cables, drain line to keep them nice and protected, but you just feed all that through the inside to the outside of your shed, hook on the inside air handler onto your wall, get it all sealed up, and you can actually move that copper line around, and there we go. Mini split inside installed. Now just have to put the exterior air compressor, mounting it directly to the foundation of the shed, which made it nice and secure. I got that mounting bracket off of Amazon. I highly recommend those. This is also the first time I charged the lines myself, and honestly, it was way easier than I thought it was going to be. Got the electrical hooked up, and that was very straightforward as well. So Toso, thank you very much for sending me your mini split unit. Next on to these ceiling light fans that I also had sent to me. I'll link all these in the description of the video below, but they were super easy to install. And then I proceeded with the Lumari can lights that were straightforward and easy to install, especially with the wiring that I'd put behind the drywall previously. And look how good those look. The Lumari actually are Wi-Fi controlled, and I'll show you guys a little bit more of those later. But now it's time to get the floor all cleaned up for the E-Core gym flooring. This is the Buff Blue 20 that Arizona Health sponsored and sent to me. There are directional arrows on the bottom, but I'm telling you, these tiles were so easy to put together, but I had a gap in the expansion joints of the concrete, so I decided to halt the flooring project and find a solution here. So I put some of the foam beading down in the larger cracks and then use this self-leveling sealant so that it would still expand but provide support underneath those E-Core floor mats. Huge shout out to Lamont Hunley over at Arizona Health for providing these floor mats for this gym build. I'm really pleased with them. One of the benefits of going with these type of gym tiles rather than a roll or any type of large rubber mat is that if any of them got damaged or scuffed or blemished, you could actually just replace one of the tiles instead of having to redo an entire section of the floor. So this makes it a lot easier, so you're not picking up heavy gym equipment or moving them around. And when they're pushed together, they really are pretty seamless.
This was seriously the easiest flooring I've ever installed.
Man, starting to feel like a gym, boys and girls.
Next up, it was time to install some PRx Performance equipment. First is the Profile Pro squat rack with pull-up bar, and the first step was to really measure out and get very specific about where I was going to mount this to the wall. Again, this is why I went with the OSB on these 2 walls, because I also had some pretty heavy equipment going on them, and drywall is just going to get kind of damaged, and I didn't want any stringer bars going across there. So I was able to drill directly into the studs with these mounts. I was impressed with PRx Performance installation instructions. They were very clear and easy to follow, and their hardware was top notch. These things are not going to go anywhere and super solid. This squat rack will fold from the wall onto the floor and back, so it does include some swinging bars and some hydraulic shocks. The pull-up bar gets mounted directly to the 2 uprights, and then I had to move it over to the wall. They tell you to use 2 people, and I totally get why, but you know, sometimes you improvise and just walk it over to the wall. I then connected the swinging arms to the 2 uprights. They did include all the hardware necessary, and again, 2 people doing this is way better than 1. But I got the job done. A little sketchy at times, but I got it all bolted together, got the hydraulic shocks installed. This will make it super easy to lift it and lower it off the wall just like this. I also got the PRx Profile Incline Folding Weight Bench, and this is going to give me a lot of versatility to not only have a bench under the squat rack for bench presses and such, but able to do incline bench presses This one was not terribly complex to put together, but definitely follow the instructions. Got it mounted directly to the wall there. They give you specific instructions on how to make sure it is set the proper distance away from the floor. But then I shifted my attention to some electronics. This is the 55-inch Sony OLED TV that I was going to put here with their low profile mount and soundbar to go below it, because I wanted some really solid surround sound in this gym to create the vibe for our workouts. I also installed the Lumeri LED HDMI synced lighting on the backside of the OLED TV before I mounted it up to the wall there. This is going to give a really cool effect. And I love how that turned out, especially with that recessed notch that I created there. This just made it so the TV wasn't sticking out away from the wall. Next up are the mirrors and the finishing touches. I really felt like I was getting in the home stretch here, but I had a lot of work to get done still. So I went and marked all of the studs, and I decided to glue and screw on these mirrors because I did not want them ever going anywhere. I positioned these to be 12 inches apart so I could put some acoustic wall slats from Accuslats in between each one of the 24-inch wide custom floor to ceiling mirrors. I definitely used a roller to make sure that glue was firmly pressed against. The acoustic slats were easy to manipulate and work with, even cutting out electrical openings. Definitely use adjustable recess boxes for this to make sure you get the right depth. But when it was coming together, I was definitely loving the detail. And everybody, please make sure you do the electrical boxes properly. Muzata was nice enough to send me over their LED channels that I was going to put the Govee M2 LED light strips in, and I designed this baseboard to cover up the LED channels. They also included diffusers, and I got to work painting the baseboard and top trim pieces. But as soon as I walked away for 2 seconds after freshly painting these, well, sometimes things happen and you pick up the pieces and keep moving forward. I proceeded to install the rest of the Accuslats and cut out the openings for the electrical boxes. These are going to be for the surround sound speakers up in the corner, and they went pretty smoothly when you're just putting slat after slat, not having to do any cuts, but it created a problem. The thickness of the slats on the OSB was going to make it so that the folding rack couldn't fold up flat against the wall, so I extended them with these blocks and made sure they were longer lag bolts to go clear into the studs, and it worked out perfectly fine. Got the other mirror installed over there, and wow, this is starting to look like a cool gym. But more work to do, more slats to install, and LED light strips. These are the Govee M1 LED light strips. I really like them, especially how close the LEDs are together and how easy it is to control with the Govee app. I then installed the finished baseboard over the Mazuta channels and created these little pocket doors so that I could access all of the Govee M1 controllers and power behind the wall if I ever needed to service that. Installed the Govee M1 LED light strip on the top, and then installed the diffusers of the Mazuta channels, which really created a cool effect because I did not want to see the individual LED lights. Confirmed that I was going to be able to still lift the profile rack up and down before I installed the top trim pieces, and made sure everything was perfectly level as I was nail gunning them to the wall. Next up was to get all the accessory mounts from PRx Performance secured to the wall. This went very smoothly, and I love the creative way that they have everything mounted to the wall. It's just clean and simple and works perfectly. PRx Performance has some great storage options, including this profile dumbbell storage. I got several of these shelves which held the dumbbells perfectly, including that dip station, and had to give everything a test. I'm liking how this is feeling. Next step was to use the Shopsmith Mark 7 to cut some custom wood ledges and windowsills for the left side of the gym here. It makes it easy to adjust the Mark 7 into whatever tool I needed to create these custom wood ledges. I kind of roughed them out initially, and then I used the Surf Prep sander, which is another amazing tool. Highly recommend that. Put a link in the description of the video for that as well, to get everything sanded perfectly smooth, starting with the rougher grain and working my way all the way up to 400 grain sandpaper with the 3x4 electric sanding system from Surf Prep. To finish these ledges, I used a Minwax premium oil-based stain. I wanted it to be nice and dark to match the aesthetics of the gym, and I sprayed it with a protective polyurethane spray because I wanted it to be able to be water resistant for setting drinks and everything else on this ledge. This is going to go below the TV and soundbar and under each one of the windows. I anchored it simply with some black screws on the backside. I'm sure I could have done plugs, but I liked how it turned out overall with the recessed TV, soundbar, and the Accuslats that I installed behind it. Getting done here with the door, just had to paint it. I ordered this door online. I really wanted a glass door to match the glass windows of the shed, so got that installed, replacing the standard shed door that I originally had there. And then I installed these SmartWave electronic roller shades from SmartWave that were custom cut to the length of these windows and then shipped directly to me. So I was a little bit nervous to see if they were going to be the right size when I installed them, but I love this aluminum black finish on them and the fact that they go up and down very smoothly with either my voice or with the
I've never
button.
seen shades be that perfect right after install. Usually they need tweaking. They nailed it. Like perfect.